Hi there.
Hi, Holly. Welcome to Malfunction Junction.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you visit.
Looks like you've added a lot to this since over the last year or two.
Well, we have over the last 5 years,
Wow.
yeah. So, be happy to give you a tour and
Great.
share with everyone today.
All right.
So, you want to go over and say hello to Rich?
Sure. Let's go over and see Rich.
Okay, Rich, Holly's here.
Great, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
You can shake that hand, I'll get it there. I'm here at the magnificent control center, which is not that big a deal, but it's a couple of transformers here that provide the power for 2 loops of track out there, and another power supply to run the trolley, which is somewhere around here, but it'll come by here eventually. And then I have switches here to keep power for the lighting systems out there and the power for whatever's needed in power out there. That's pretty much what's here.
And you have a remote there. What's the remote for?
This little remote here, it turns on things like the gondola going up and down over there. That's a remote thing, and the railway lights over here are on it. The rotating beacon at the airport. These are all done remotely from that little switch.
Great. Well, why don't we go on over and sit down and you can tell us some more about your railroad.
Let's go do that.
We got involved in trains because our accountant over in Clear Lake, California, was interested in maybe a garden railroad. And we went to a garden railroad show about 1999, and I snuck home a little Bachman 4-car set with a 20 feet of track, and that was his Christmas present, and that started. But we never had a chance. We kept collecting, but we never had a chance to do anything until we moved here.
Yeah, well, my first train was right after World War II, 1946. My dad bought me a Lionel set, because Lionel went back into production of trains instead of something for the war effort at that point. So that was my very first train. When I had that for, until I went in the Navy, and while I was in the Navy, my mother gave my train set to my rotten little cousin, who destroyed it. So then, like I said, we started collecting. We actually had boxes with engines and cars, up in the top of the garage before we ever had a place to put it. We did run it around a house at one time, under the couch and around the living room.
Under the coffee table.
Yeah, well, that was the only place we really had. We didn't have a yard until we moved here. And it would work in it, so we had this layout originally in our backyard. Then it got, or I got too old actually to get down on the ground and play with the trains. So we looked around for a building, we found this, and this we figured would be an investment. This whole thing comes apart with a screw gun, and the building could be for sale then. That's very simple. Well, this is just an investment here, and I don't have a clue how much money we have in trains and track.
This was a tire shop, and we had to take down a couple of walls but it was pretty much open like this, and had the bathroom, had everything. It had a, what I call a lean-to in the back that went out about 20 feet, and that's where they stored a lot of the tires. And when we came here, the ceiling was like this in a roof, and we immediately had it torn down. So that back part of the building hadn't seen the light of day. It's probably in the late 50s. This was built in 1958.
1958, I believe your dad
Yeah.
had something to do with this building
Yeah.
at that time. So yeah, this place was pretty messed up because it was a tire shop. It was pretty dirty. Out in the side yard there was
4,000 tires.
4,000 old tires that they had to get rid of. So it took a while to get this.
Did that come with the purchase?
Oh, yeah, we didn't take it
No,
till
they had to
we
get
got-
rid of it. And there was a sump out here on the side that they poured all the old whatever oil, what have you down there. So they had to go through a giant, dig up all the dirt, haul it off, and it was contaminated. So I don't know. I don't think the owner made a lot of money.
Well, the owner had died anyway. It was his son.
Yeah. Anyhow, so we got the building, and that's where we started from here. At one of our training club meetings, we had it here, and all I had was over in that corner was one piece of plywood sitting on some framework that I sort of had up.
5 years ago.
And so I was going to start on doing this the next day, and John O'Brien, one of our members, said he'd come and help me. And how many months later, this was done.
Well, we had the meeting the end of January, because it just showed up on Facebook, the one table, and we had laid track around string, and then laid track around to be sure that our big train would go around the curves. That was one of the problems at home. We couldn't get around the curve. No matter what we did, we didn't have room to make it big enough. Well, the house in Sparks, we bought partially because it had a raised bed. It's about 2 feet or so along the back fence. And that was one of the things that helped us decide to build that house when we were looking. We were looking for places. We looked at a place up off of Pyramid that went up the hill like this. We looked at other places, and the backyard wasn't as big as this little section here. So that kind of chose what we did. And it was 18 years ago, this next week, that we got the house. And so we didn't even know what it looked like with everything in bloom and that kind of thing. But it was laid out perfectly for us to make the loop. So
yeah, it was well, it was kind of a two-story or two-level layout. And one part was pretty steep, but that was the downhill part, so that didn't matter. And it took the rest of the layout to get back up to that altitude to go back and dive again down, and that went around a pond we put in. Back there was 60 feet wide, so double that. With all the turns around, maybe 200 feet there.
and then we had a side, well, the trolley was on a side that just went back and forth along that fence for 30 feet.
Through a flower bed, that one way through that, so that worked out. And then once we got here and got this up, we didn't have the trolley up, and I decided I had to do something. So I got my skill back at soldering all these little pipes together to make the elevated trolley line. The bridge I had back there, which was that lower the house, that was a one-year winter project. And once I got the thing up, then the very next winter was when we had the, what do you call this, the storms.
200-year storms in 1 week.
You get 100-year storms, and yeah, we had another one a week later. So this was buried, and I didn't know whether it would survive or not, but when it came over, it was still there, so it's a bridge, so I guess I did it right. Other than that, we collect stuff and make stuff out of, what was this shoe thing? This is
Well, that came from Michael's. It's a file box.
file box. It's a file box. You have to modify things. A lot of the buildings we have are to be the bird feeders or bird houses, and you have to convert them into a house with the right scale. You have to hide the little hole somehow, make a window out of it or whatever. That all works. So other than that, that's how we got involved and got going here. And we're still doing it. So I don't know. I keep adding little things around the thing, but that's about it. That's how we got here. The power always has analog power. It's hooked up at one spot on each track. There's two tracks running around here now. And I'm only hooked in one spot. Some people think you have to hook it up every whatever number of feet, but not so. It works just fine. Keep them hooked up, keep them clean, they work.
This started out as Rich's hobby because he had never really had one. We're both pilots, but my hobby was always flying, and so the trains and things are Rich's. But as far as the buildings, as you can see later, we have a lot of buildings along the walls, and that's because we had 60 feet of fence at home. So I built all of those. In fact, the first year over here, I was working for my sister and went down to her sign shop. That's a nice advantage. Went down to the sign shop, and Rich thought I was working, and I was making these buildings for Christmas the first year, and then did others. But so that's been my thing. I've always liked to do things with my hands. I've always sewn, but I grew up in a family that we did things with our hands. So a lot of these things I've built. When Rich was talking about back over here, when you see the motel, those were bird houses, but they were only this wide. So I added the back section, put a different floor on them to make them 8 by 8, which would be 16 by 16, which would be a normal old-fashioned motel room. So we try and keep things pretty much to scale, but we're not the absolute positive. It has to be exact, and just back up a little more. And like Rich said, I go a lot to places like Michael's, and I think there was a file cabinet. I saw a picture one day of the men and women's bathroom. You see that over here in the park. Okay, I can do that. So I just kind of figured out a size. Over here, when you get to the most recent thing that we did last summer, the community hall was again another thing I bought at Michael's, and you even saw it on an ad on TV. It's sort of a miniature dollhouse. It opened up in the middle, and it had stairs, and it's behind an ad for a lady on TV for some health thing. Well, I took out the stairs, added a few more inches to it, and it became the community hall. And a dear friend that's a harpist, so we had to have a wedding, so we don't have a wedding with a harp. But these kinds of things just is how they happen. And when we get over to the other longer section with the hotel and the Celio store, almost all of our titles are places that have been a part of our life. So we've tried to do that too.
The only building on this whole place that I built is the firehouse. All the rest of them, Kathy's done or modified, changed them or whatever, or purchased them, which some are available in this scale, G scale here. That's
and again, both being pilots, we had to have an airport, and so our airport is not the right quite scale, but it's authentic because again, one of our members, John O'Brien, helped with the lights to we have the runway lights and the approach lights at the end. And right now it's set up for Christmas because our holiday party got a little delayed. Obviously we couldn't have people here not even knowing what the content of the building would be. So we're now going to have our holiday party the 1st of May. But right now, this is mid-February, the end of February, so everything is still set up, but the section that's the miniature Christmas section on the other side becomes a concours d'elegance in the summertime with lots of cars and things. So.
Well, I find in this scale of the trains, there are people who are purists, and every car has to be exactly the same size. And to them, I tell them, go over here to the train yard in Sparks and take a look at trains, the real trains over there. They're not all the same size. None of the cars, a lot of specialty cars for whatever function they're for. Some are really long, some are really short, tall or whatever. So I don't understand those people at all. So, well, I chose that name because every time we're going to do something, open a house,
Water and rails.
or yeah, that, or we think everybody's working fine, and it is the day before, and then the day of, you're going to turn the things on, and something always doesn't work. But you have to, in a hurry, get it going again. So that's the Malfunction Junction. Population 2. The Transcontinental Railroad is how far?
A few hundred feet,
Yeah.
not even yards
Yeah, it's not-
from us.
A couple hundred feet maybe, out the back door. And when they go by, we get realistic sound in here. Our trees. Well, most of the people that we know that are in this hobby kind of did the same thing. They were thinking about it. They would buy some equipment, some cars, engines, some track, and it would sit in their house or the garage for some years until they figured out somewhere or bought a house or whatever to build a layout. And then they would do it. So I don't think anybody really wakes up in the morning and says, oh, I'm going to go out and do this. It's kind of a gradual thing that you finally get to it.
The other thing that I would say, I remember that probably 10, 11 years ago, during Water and Rails, which is an open house that we have had this year, we haven't had it, but and it raised money for ALS, and Rich was on the board of that for the first 10 years, I think it was, Walton, right? But we had a fellow come, a wannabe journalist, and he asked if he could take pictures. We were still in the backyard at home. And he came 2 days and he said, oh, well, so-and-so's is the best. And I said, excuse me? I said, you have to understand, everyone does what they feel they want to do. We have people in our club, one since died. He had a circle, basically, around a center garden thing in his backyard with maybe 50 feet total of railroad. And that's what he had and what he liked. We have other people, like our friend Holly, who has hundreds of feet, thousands of feet, I guess you are now, Holly, but of rail. And I said it's what everybody feels they want to do, what they're interested in, what they feel they can afford to do in some cases, or a lot of cases, because this is not an inexpensive hobby, even if you do a lot of it yourself. So I would always say, you don't ever judge somebody as better, it's what you want. And everyone is different. And we've gone to many National Railroad things when we first got here 18 years ago, and took tons of pictures and things. And you go with what you want, and just keep trying to find ways to change it or add to it. But there's certainly never a contest about what you do or how you do it.
Train group, we are lucky to have a few people that are experts in things that I certainly don't know a thing about. One of them is a retired electrician. So when I bought this building, it was a disaster. So that person got this building safe with all the lighting and what have you. It was really bad. And another member is electrical engineer. So when some of these things don't work, go to him, and he has the expertise to at least give me an idea of where to go to find what's wrong. I don't know. I'm not To me, electricity is like, don't touch it, you don't get a train that's running by over here right now.
Santa Fe.
The Santa Fe train is limited in the degree of return. It has to be very shallow. So as we started building, like I said, this corner over here, and after coming out, and John O'Brien was helping me, and he has built several layouts. So I'm thinking I've got enough 4x8s to get where I want to go, and he said it's not going to work. The train can't make, it's got to have more room to turn. So we kept getting wider and wider, and longer and longer. So this is, the size of it is built for that train. The rest of it is hit and miss, I guess. But as long as we got that train, you can go around. The rest of them have no problem. So that train won't run on the inside of the track. It has to go on the one that's on the outside. Have separate loops and the elevator.
And a side loop to take the long train off and switch them out.
Okay, we got a siding for the outside loop. Over here we have a hole in the wall that goes into the back room where all stored the trains are, and I can take the trains from here and drive them right into there and change them out. Whatever I want to bring out next is a whole room full of trains back there.
We never counted.
There's 6 tracks back there, and they're all full. What do you imagine? There's a Virginia Truckee train back there. There's like a work train, like a railroad work train. I don't really care because I can say go out here to the train yard, and they're not all one kind of train. They're all kinds of trains sitting there every day. You're going through here every day. So I figure, why not? A variety. So I put all kinds of different trains out there.
Well, everything evolved too for us. The first ones, we had a dollhouse place here when we first moved here, and I went over there and I got some of the plans for the buildings that are on the wall over here, like the general store. I mean, it's a whole plan for a real building, but since I only have the home, we only have the fence, I started with that, and so the theme was just trying to get, you had to have a school, of course the Walton School. I was a teacher also, but the Walton School, you had to have a church, you had to have a bank, a general store, and that's how I started. But then when I did the other ones, we just kept going, and again, many things in our life, from places like we had to have a theater, so the Fairfax Theater in Oakland where we went, that kind of became the name of that one. So some of the other buildings just got named, but actually if you think about most of the buildings we have here, places that we knew, those buildings today are 50, 60, 70 years old. And over in this section, I went downtown, I had a fine friend that lived right downtown here in the Sparks, and I went over and found those 12-foot houses over there. She lived across the street in a 24-foot house. So the old houses that they moved from Wadsworth in here, 12 by 24 and 24 by 24. So I took pictures, kind of measured the windows, and built those two over there as what I always call Wadsworth houses. So, but you just try and fit. One year we found a good deal of Lowe's on birdhouses, and we added to them the next year. So it makes just kind of a neighborhood. I just try and find the characters that are going to help make it a little more fun. That's the hard part, I think, finding characters to fit the space, or animals, or people will come and they say, oh, you didn't have that before. Yeah, we've had it 4 or 5 years when you look. But some of the little hidden things that we try and find to add to